Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is the first video in the, I'll call it 2021 Miltonia feeding project. That'll do. Don't want a title 10 foot long, do we? The idea is to take two incredibly similar plants. They're not identical, they're not the same species even, but they're very similar plants and very closely related. And as this is the first video, this is where we sort of benchmark the project. This is where we have a good look at the two plants involved. And I'm going to do a spreadsheet on these, so we'll keep copious notes, and every time I do anything to these plants, including watering and feeding, all that sort of stuff will get updated into the spreadsheet, and we will do regular video updates to visually see their progress as well as actually documenting them. The entries in the spreadsheet will be at every watering. Yeah? The video updates won't be as frequent as that, but we'll monitor the changes, let's put it that way. And the idea is to feed one at my regular feed level. So that will be plant number 1, which is the Miltonia spectabilis, and in the spreadsheet it's coloured red, so I've stuck a red tag on it so we don't get them in a muddle. And the other one is Miltonia moreliana, and that's plant number 2, which is in green in the spreadsheet, so I've stuck a green tag in it so we don't get them muddled up. And they were last watered on the 23rd, and that was a flush. So that's a good starting point. So that's it. That's in the spreadsheet already. I'll be monitoring not only the TDS of the feed level, but what feed went into it, because occasionally they might get an additive. You know, they might get some CalMag or something. So I'll keep notes of what they get and the strength of it, and also note the pH as well. So we've got full notes of everything they're going to get through the whole of the growing season, really. I think I'm going to sneeze. We'll worry about that in a minute. Maybe not. I had somebody quite funny once. Somebody said, "Oh, it's all the pollen from all your orchid blooms." No, it's not. Orchid pollen comes in containers, comes in little pollen sacs. There is no loose pollen. Doesn't work. They don't work like that. So it doesn't blow about in the wind or anything. Anyway, these are our two plants. Let's put one to one side for a start, and I've even brought this so that we can, and this to do some notes, and that to just keep me going basically. Right, plant number 1. Both of these plants, when they were potted, were pieces. I can't remember how many pieces are involved, but they're not a single plant. They are pieces of plants. In other words, the older parts, the older tattier parts of the plant were taken off, leaving the leads, the ones that have got the growths, which were new at the time, little new growths that were pushing out. So starting from the tags then, behind there we have a new growth. Yeah? And coming round here, we have another new growth here that is probably going to be the largest. Tucked away in the middle we have another new growth, so that's 3. And then round here we have another new growth, 4. Yeah? They are showing signs of starting roots at the base, but only just. You can't say they are actively producing roots yet. Yeah? And often Miltonias get the actual growths get quite large before the new root system starts. Anyway, we shall see. We'll document that as well. So what I was going to do was pick one, and I'm going to pick this one because it's the easiest to get at, and we'll measure how long it is. This will be fun, won't it? If I measure it from the base like that up to the tip, let's say that is 10.5 centimetres, so that's 105 millimetres, is it? So that's new growth, 105. And obviously in this video we've said which growth we're going to monitor its actual progress. Now some of the other growths might grow slower or faster, but I'm not measuring all of them, that's just too much detail, so we'll pick on one. Yeah? So that's all I need to say about this at the moment. We've got no active root systems on the new growths yet, but signs where they will be, just little white bits at the base at the moment. That's as far as they've got. So that's that one, plant number 1, marked in red. Yeah, so get that out of the way and have a look at plant number 2. Right, again, if we start from the tag and go left like we did with the other one, we've got a new growth here and a new growth here. Now this is different because they are both coming out of the same pseudobulb, and that's the only example of that on both plants. Okay, but there's still new growths counting, coming round from the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again we have 4 new growths. Yeah, so it's the same number of new growths. The growths on this one are roughly at the same stage. Again, the new root systems on the new growths are not started yet. They're not there yet, but we will watch for them as we go along. I suspect halfway through the growing season that these pots are going to be full of roots, but we will have to wait and see. So I now need to pick on a growth again, and I'm going to pick on this one because it's the one that's the easiest to get at, and in addition to that it is on a single growth on a bulb. I didn't want to pick on these because this bulb, this part of the plant, is trying to support 2 new growths. Well, it might not do that quite as well as if it was only 1 new growth, so we'll pick on one of the pieces that's got a single new growth. And again, we will check how long that is. From the base, get out of the way, bark, from the base to the tip, that one I would say is 11.5. So slightly bigger this time round. And again, that's all I'm going to document at this particular point. All we're doing is basically this is what the plants look like at the start of the project. The next thing I've got to do is find somewhere where they are both going to get the same amount of light and are easily accessible. Quite honestly, that's here. Now that's not ideal because they are quite tall plants, and I've got some mounted orchids which will then be behind those plants, and obviously I need to get at those mounts very frequently as the season progresses. So that's not ideal, but where else can I put them? You know, this one's already full. Okay, I could swap some things around, but then tall plants start getting in the way of those mounts, so this would be a reasonable option as well. But again, those plants are already occupying that. Now they've come from there, and their height came up through this gap where this shelf is missing. But that's quite a low light area. I'd rather they got more light than that. Yeah, so they're only down there because I don't want them in the highest light not long after they've been repotted, if you see what I mean. And we'll update when they got repotted into the spreadsheet when we do that bit in a minute. So I think I will settle them in up there. The zygo's staying up there because according to Michael, if you give it really good light, it'll grow faster, it won't stall, and it produces a better root system. Well, occasionally, not often, I actually do as I'm told. It's a rarity, but does happen sometimes, and you know, we're getting success now. Spikes. Anyway, digression. Stick to the project. So I will set them up there. Next time we visit them will be their first watering and feed, which will be in a day or two. It won't be long. As I said, they were last watered on the 23rd. It's the 29th now, so that's 6 days. probably either tomorrow or the day after, we'll be thinking about giving them their first feed. And the idea, so that you know, is that this one is going to get fed and watered the same as all my other pots. So that will just be done, yeah? And then what we will do is at the end of the watering session, there's usually some water left over, we will increase the feed level quite a bit and do this one. So the idea is to do this one with my normal feeding, which is low and often, and with this one we're going to do much higher and often. And the idea is to see if we get a bigger, stronger plant with more spikes than we do on this one, implying that overall I may not be feeding as high as I should be for actively growing plants. But I can't make that decision without trying it, if you see what I mean. Because you get other people say, oh, I feed at much higher levels than that. Yeah, well, your environment's probably not the same as mine. It's very, very difficult to find two environments that are the same, and those are the growing conditions, and they can have a dramatic effect. So there we go then, that's the start of the project, and it should be interesting to follow these two through. Say they look nice and healthy. Let's try and keep them that way, shall we? Neither of them have got good root systems. They've just got their old tired roots from the older parts of the plant, but they should develop new root systems with those new growths. They've both got 4 new growths each, roughly at similar sort of stages. We've got one slightly smaller new growth on this plant than the others, but we'll see how they go on. As I say, it's impossible to get 2 identical plants, but you have to bear in mind, as far as the species is concerned, spectabilis, species in its own right, and this used to be spectabilis variety moreliana. Yeah? So they are very, very closely related. Now, this has been given its own, its name in its own right now. So it's not a variety of this one, although it will still be shown like that for about 50 years before people get their head around the fact that it's been changed. If that quick, I don't know. Could take longer. You never know with these name changes. So this is now a species in its own right, moreliana. So there we go. That's the start point. And we'll keep this going right, probably up to and including blooming. That would be a good point to sort of say the project's finished, I would think. Because after blooming, obviously there'll be a period of non-activity followed by new growths again, where it sort of starts the cycle again. So yeah, I think we'll take them up to blooming point, whenever that might be. Right, now we're going to have a look at the spreadsheet details. Okay, this is the spreadsheet I've set up. Let's make that big so we can all see what we're doing here. Not much in here at the moment, obviously. I've colour-coded the plant number 1, as we decided out in the grow room, Miltonia spectabilis, and I'll be recording the feed content with TDS, so that'll show whether there's additives or anything like that, and the pH that was used at the time. And on the 23rd, that was flushed with RO water, which has a TDS of 9 and a pH of I didn't check it, but it's about 6.8, 6.9-ish. So today, the 29th, the first video was produced. On this particular plant, we decided there were 4 new growths. One was chosen to monitor, and that is currently 105 millimeters long. Roots under the new growths not yet started, but they're showing signs. Bulbs not yet forming. Obviously the information on the other one is identical, apart from the length of the new growth, which was, he says, having not updated it. That's better. That was 115, wasn't it? Yeah, so again, details, just 4 new growths, one chosen to monitor, currently 115 millimeters. Same details with the roots, started but no signs, and bulbs not yet forming. So very, very similar plants, and that's the sort of details I'll be keeping. So every time something happens with these plants, an entry will go in here. Most of those entries will just be the watering and feeding, and we'll have regular video updates where we actually check the length of our new growths that we're monitoring, one on each plant. Obviously, there won't be any additional new growths. Highly unlikely. But who knows? Strange things and all that. But yeah, we'll be just monitoring the way those 4 new growths on each plant progress, when the roots start, how good the roots are going to be, and eventually the bulbs will start to show and form. And not long after that, I suspect we should start seeing some spikes. There is no good reason why each one of those new growths shouldn't produce a spike, but they might not. A lot of it will depend on what's behind that new growth. In other words, is there a large mature pseudobulb? Is there 2 pseudobulbs behind it? Yeah, remember what I said about the net strength of a plant unit and its ability to bloom. So the more strength there is in the unit, the more likely it is to bloom, and the more likely it is to bloom better the bigger and stronger that unit is. So we shall see what happens. In theory, plant number 2 should grow quicker, the bulb should be bigger and stronger, and the root system better, and either more blooms or more spikes than plant number 1. There may be no difference, and that's what this is all about. Is that real increase in not frequency, but only content, yeah? And does that big increase in feed actually produce a bigger, stronger plant? Because if it doesn't, you just as well pour your fertilizer down the drain because you're wasting your money. If the plant can use it and build a much stronger, healthier plant that blooms better, then it's worth doing. Hopefully by the end of the season, we'll find out. So there we go. All good stuff, all good fun. Keeps me on my toes and gives me something else to do. Because at the moment, can't go out, can't do this, can't do that, not allowed to do this, no meetings, no shows. So we need things to do in the home. Little things like this keep you busy. All good stuff. Right, see you next time.